Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and give this video a like.
Podcast below in the description. Go check it out as well.
Video brought to you by our friends at wineaccess.com/ham. Get 20% off.
Yep. Wineaccess.com/ham. Send a gift today. 20% off on us. Wineaccess.com/ham.
Satisfaction guaranteed. One of our favorites, John, Mike Sando of The Athletic, wrote a piece. Was this Friday? I think it came out. It was great weekend reading. I read it on Saturday. Execs, what are they saying? What are they saying about drafts? What do they say about your draft? So we went through and we pulled all the quotes that Mike Sando got from anonymous execs, and we're just going to rattle through them and kind of analyze what we think makes sense, what doesn't make sense. I think I pulled these in order of the article. All right. So here we go. First up, this is exec. I want like specific. I love when they say like an NFC exec, to show that they're not making the guy up, but it gives me no context for anything, An NFC East exec. It's like, ooh, who could it be? The guy in charge of tickets in New York? So this is what he says. You can't pick the Alabama guy, Mac Jones, and have him turn out to be Daniel Jones. This is about the Niners draft. You have to pick the guy that looks the part and has big-time upside. Lance is starting exactly where the Buffalo guy started. High grit, high want to, works at it, loves the game, all those things that make you feel good about developing him. What do I think about the exec that calls Josh Allen the Buffalo guy? That's the first thing we address here.
I just think, that's just kind of how they talk. I mean, he could have just said Josh Allen, but it could be, someone in the division doesn't want to give Josh Allen too much credit, To me, I just agree with the original, like the first part of his deal. You could not take Mac Jones. And back to talking about the value, if it cost a third-round pick, if that was extra throw-in just to get a peace of mind that led them to Trey Lance, that was worth it alone. But this is what we said the whole time, where it had to be Lance or Fields. You had to take a swing for the fences. You just had to. And it would have been – there would have been a negativity to me just around every time that we went live, every time that you run into a Niner fan. It would not have felt the same. And I'm not saying Trey Lance, like most people don't even know, right? It's just a great part of anything. I mean, hope's a powerful emotion because you're just hoping. And that's what I think it is. But it's not because people feel great. People feel great that it ultimately right now that it was not Mac Jones more than they know Trey Lance, because they don't. No, none of us. You and I watch more football probably than like 98% of people. And I never watched Trey Lance throw one pass live, right?
I think higher than 98% of people, but yeah, I agree.
It's just so part of it was just the anti-Mac.
One percenters here.
You could not draft Mac Jones. And I think that's what the league thought. That's what we thought. It was one of those like kind of universally agreed upon, like they can't really do this, can they? When everyone kept saying it, like they're really not going to do this. They didn't.
I think from people who follow the Niners, it was partly was like, don't make me, like from fans who really like their coach, don't make me hate my coach. Kyle, don't make me hate you. From the rest of the league, it wasn't about that. It was more about, are they really going to misjudge just the value here of being at number 3 based on a prospect? And, Daniel Jones, like,
he went 6th.
I mean, and it felt kind of crazy when they did it. And right now, it doesn't feel like it's going in a good direction. But to me, it's playing out the way it usually plays out with that guy, and that's not the way the Niners could have afforded to have it play out.
No. Now, I think the pushback would be, if Daniel had been drafted by Kyle, I bet he's way better, just because he does have some. It looks really weird in New York at times. He has more talent than I think you're giving him credit for.
Yeah,
he's more physically gifted than Mac Jones. It sounds crazy, but he just is.
A former GM said this. Former GM? Wait, he's got to be anonymous as a former GM? Was he like, put my name on it? And Sando's like, no, this is only anonymous people. I would bet on Trey Lance as a former GM. I don't know how fast it's going to happen. A high character guy with talent, going to an excellent system and an excellent coach. Then I'll read you, this is 2 quotes in one. Another evaluator, maybe a scout, maybe a Middlecoff out there, said the things to fix with Lance are easier than the things to fix with Fields. Most of that has to do with instincts, the quickness, the consistency of their reaction. So two guys one guy who values Fields below Lance, and another guy who just says, I'm betting on Trey Lance.
Yeah, I mean, part of when the people you bet on in football, I think pretty consistently are guys with a ton of physical, talent, great athletic attributes, whether that's, if you're a wide receiver, size and speed, whether that's a quarterback, size and arm strength and athleticism, that are super high character guys. Like that to me seems like an easy bet. That's why I think so many people are bullish on him, even though his resume is really small. There's not much to go off of, but they're going super high character guy with super great gifts. That's what more do you want to bet on? Because people often bet on super great gifts, average to below character. Those guys are always drafted in the top 10. The freaks, right? And those are hit or misses. But I think you do feel pretty good about betting on the high character.
When his just skills. The question is not his talent level. The question is, can it translate to good quarterback play in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
And you have that question about literally every guy you draft anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The guys who have put 4 years on tape, we have that question about, right? Justin Fields put great stuff on tape at Ohio State. And it's a legitimate question to say, is he a great NFL quarterback? The second quote here to me, it would not surprise me, John, if we had all 32 boards, if half of them or more than half of them had Trey Lance higher than Justin Fields.
I think it's fair. I think Trey Lance was very, very highly thought of. And part of that, right or wrong, is just based on the lack of information.
That's right.
Like I have less information to go off of. I have a greater unknown. I have a greater, at least even though Justin Fields ultimately only started 2 years, I think it was 22 total games, and Trey ended up starting 17. I think him and Mac Jones started the same amount. When I'm watching Justin Fields, he is playing Michigan, Northwestern, Wisconsin. I am taking a huge guess on the level of competition. It's a dramatic difference, right?
Shots fired at Dan Hawkins.
Dramatic difference. The Big 12, brother.
This is an exec. The only strange thing to me about the Niners is if you're keeping Garoppolo and if you're paying $25 million, you lose whatever benefit there is of having a quarterback on a rookie contract. I would have traded Garoppolo and just cleared the books, saved the money, gone into free agency with more resources. See, this comment to me the timeline of it all doesn't make sense. I don't think you can, until you know you're drafting.
Not an educated comment.
And then the other part of it is you don't lose the benefit. The benefit will exist in 2022 if Trey Lance is good enough to move on from Jimmy.
Yeah, but I think his point is right now, you could just trade Jimmy Garoppolo or cut him and have the space and go trade for Julio Jones. It is a lot of space. I think he's a little high on his number. I think it's closer to 20 than 25. But the point remains, it is a large chunk of change, right? $20+ million on a cap that went down is large. I don't think you could have made it March 15th without knowing they hadn't made the trade yet. You could justify it now. Could he be a post-June 1 cut? I'm just saying, you would. It wouldn't make any sense if you didn't have another move lined up. But to me, if you were ready to make another move to get Julio Jones, I'm just use him because he's a $20 million guy. Now, would I want to trade a second or third round pick for a guy that's 32 years old? And, is it just safer to keep Jimmy? There is a cost-benefit analysis to all this.
Yes, it is. One more exec. San Francisco is one of those teams that did a great job creating the narrative. They get treated kindly. Other teams with better records over the past 4 years get crushed. Look at some of their early picks. What makes you think Trey Lance is the right pick if you follow the record of their early picks? I think our buddy Chris Biederman wrote on maybe the week before the draft that I think the Niners, the old Ron Wolf thing, which I've quoted before, you hitting 300 or 333, whatever. I think Ron Wolf hit 300 draft picks that ended up as starters. The Niners are 285 coming into this draft, right? So they have missed. There's no doubt, and they've had some high profile misses. Now they've had some major hits too, but it is interesting to see a little somebody who feels like they're not getting criticized enough.
I do feel I think there's some validity to this. There's some jealousy within the league on how they get treated with the 24/7 kind of reach around, and how I know Kyle's been anointed, and did people just love Kyle and John? And just based on their resume, they've had one season. Now, here's my pushback. Their one good season wasn't they hosted a wild card game. I mean, they made the fucking Super Bowl.
Right.
They beat the shit out of everybody. They had the number 1 seed. Their 1 year was badass. And then actually, if you really watched 20, it was pretty impressive too. Like, I agree, like, you want to nitpick 17 and 18. It had some holes, some issues. There were some problems. There was a lot of unknown. He probably got anointed a little higher than they should have. But I'd say 19 and 20 were pretty impressive.
Here's what I say about this all the time. Whatever. You want to nitpick. Do they get too much credit? What would you, if everybody's coach became available, how high would Kyle Shanahan go? I think he'd go really high. I think he'd be like one of the first 5 coaches taken. So whatever, yes. Like, say he gets too much, whatever. I think he'd get. That's how I talk about it. That's why I talk about him. However it is, whenever that to me is the background. Now he goes 2 more years, and he's not making the playoffs, and Trey Lance isn't good, and okay, that things change. But I think he does less with. I think he does more with less.
And this is the type of move where it's going to be like there's going to be eventually a concrete opinion, like it worked or it's not going well.
Yeah.
Right. Once you get. Now, it takes time. Like, we're just going to naturally react, and every human will, game to game, season to season. But you'll have 2 or 3 years looking back and be like, whoa, that didn't go well. Or, wow, that went pretty well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not be like, it's kind of middle of the road. Just given what you give up.
Right.
Yeah, the expectations are going to be out. They already are. I mean, we're just talking about people universally are like, Niners are top 10 team. Niners are top 10 team. And part of that, though, is when they had the roster – they were really good. And then last year, all the guys got hurt. And then they bring the majority of these guys back. Now, we can nitpick. I don't think they're as good, the roster, as of 19. But they're definitely pretty good. Like, they should be a playoff team. And that's where the expectations this year. But the weird part is, what if Jimmy's starting the majority of the games they make the playoffs? Like, we won't really know much about Trey Lance.
No, I know. Well, here's the last one from Sando. An exec says, Trey Lance is a ball of clay, and the only thing is whether he can process at the next level because he just doesn't have the experience. But all the talent's there. The mental part seems to be there. The personality seems to be there. All the pieces are there. He is developmental, so it makes sense to keep Jimmy for now. Pretty straightforward. We don't need to spend a ton of time on that, but I think that, to me, is the reason that's...
Was that John Lynch?
It just said an exec. Could have been John Schneider. I love when they always say rival exec. It's like, well, was it rival exec or just somebody from like the Colts?
Yeah.
Oh, rival exec. Just Rams or Seahawks.
But could a rival exec be just another team in the NFC that like says we're a good team too?
Yeah, that one said exactly. Well, are you really a rival or? Rival is like, I think the reason you say rival is like this person should hate him, but he has begrudging respect.
Yeah.